Greetings, I am David Stark and this is Game Talk, wherein I play some game and I talk about its design. I'm an indie game developer. I develop a game called Airships Conquer the Skies, but today we're going to be looking at Don't Starve. Now, I like Don't Starve. I've put quite a lot of time into it, and it has this useful feature that it has really clear instructions. Don't starve. Don't do that. That's pretty straightforward. Of course, it's a bit more complicated than that in practice, but in a sense, not starving is pretty much all you do. I mean, okay, you can also freeze to death or be eaten or something, but quite a lot of the time, really, what kills you is starvation. And what you play, the game you play, all the mechanics are arranged very nicely around this core goal of not dying. Okay, I hope the audio mix is at decent volume level. Just gonna dive in. I expect you probably know this game. If not, well, you should know it. It's by Klei Entertainment. The newest game is actually Invisiblink, which I also have. Yeah, and you can get it on Steam like for not that much. It's old enough that if you wait around for a little while, it's probably going to be like wonderfully cheap at some point again. Okay, so let's just delete some kind of profile. You only get a bunch of save slots for some reason. Right, so you play, like by default, as this guy, Wilson, who gets pulled into a portal and is deposited in a strange kind of Edward Gorey-ish world. Much like Darkest Dungeon is basically they took Mike Mignola's art style and said we want exactly this. With Don't Starve, they took Edward Gorey's art style and said we want exactly this, which, whatever, it looks good. Here we are then. This is like the devil who's teleported us to this new world. So here we are. You can move around by clicking on the ground or by using AASD, so much so standard. So it's a 2D world, it's entirely two-dimensional. It's got this kind of perspective thing going on, but there are literally no layers. I mean, really the only meaningful, well, technically it's played in two layers. The ground is a layer and all the items on the ground are a layer, but the ground's not that relevant. So you can click on things to interact with them, and we really spend a lot of time just harvesting stuff. One thing which I really like about this is that you can hit space if you're close to an interactable item, and your character will move towards that item and then interact with it as long as you hold down space, which is great because it means you only rarely need to use the mouse, which makes this actually quite pleasant to play. One circumstance where you do need to use the mouse is combat. So I think there are ways of doing auto-targeting as well. And I think some people really don't like the combat in this, because like everything else in the game is kind of, well, it's more about kind of resource management, and then the combat can be quite hectic. So yeah, I'm just gathering like twigs and carrots and grass and so on to be able to build tools. And I mean, games with like crafting are like a dime a dozen now. I think Ryan Meshmel snarked like a few weeks ago that when he sees the word crafting in a trailer, now he just instantly loses interest. Like, okay, your game has crafting, so what? This is a very crafting heavy game. It does a pretty good job of it as well. I mean, one thing that's always funny with crafting is that there are always these weird fantasies of how much easier of kind of pretending that making stuff is easy. In fact, making stuff is really hard, and you need very specialized skills and knowledge. So, if any of us actually got put into some kind of wilderness, we would just die. This guy, of course, isn't really in a real wilderness. He's in some kind of weird nightmare world, so any kind of incongruences can also just be put down to that. And right now this might look quite easy, but it's actually a pretty hard game, because the thing is, like right now, like there's basically 3 meters you need to look at. There's hunger in the top right. There's hunger, there's hit points, and there's sanity. So it's got like Call of Cthulhu-esque sanity meter, and if your sanity goes down too low, you get a whole bunch of problematic effects. So you really don't want that to happen. And in a sense, often what happens is that you kind of end up doing a lot of things which kind of trade to one for the other, like health for sanity or whatever. There's some items that very much explicitly do that, in fact. But those in practice, it's a question of like your fourth resource is basically time, right? You're always consuming time, and you need to find a good balance of how to convert your time into all the other resources that you need, and finding ways to make that more effective. And the making it more effective thing, that's kind of an interesting issue here. Like, so this is a game with crafting, it's a game in a virtual world, and like you could, for example, compare it to Minecraft. I mean, there's probably some Minecraft in there, genetically speaking, so to speak. Minecraft has a survival component, but the survival component is pretty mild. I mean, the fighting component can be quite hard, but the actual not starving thing, I mean, that's very straightforward. It's really, the amount of food you need in Minecraft is tiny. In that sense, it's actually like Wolf Fortress, which of course is the inspiration for Minecraft, in that, like, frankly, you ought to be spending like most of your time like looking for food and shelter, if this was in any way realistic given the tech level. But in practice, you spend like a little bit of time setting up some decent food sources, and then you're basically good to go. And Don't Starve is different in that sense. I mean, food, you need a lot of food, and the food can also, like, the food spoils, and there's some passive-ish food sources like beehives, but they're kind of rare. I mean, you can't really survive entirely off passive food sources, so you do have to hunt or farm or whatever to survive. And that means you're really in this constant state of working to not starve. And it's okay, I need to make a torch here. So this is the crafting menu. I have a torch. Was a bit early, but I really don't want to be caught in the dark, so if you end up in dark, monsters come out pretty quickly and eat you. So having light is really crucial when it gets properly night in a little bit. Yeah, so here really, good. These guys are really useful because their poop is good for farming. So it's a very useful discovery, in fact. Might mean that I might build my base somewhere kind of near them, so I have a steady supply of poop. Because basically this poop can get turned straight into food, and so this is a steady source of food. So like right at the start, like things are fairly mild. You start out like in a mild season, there are like lots of berry bushes and stuff like that around, so it's not like, as long as you have new land to kind of go through and it's like spring, you don't actually need to like do anything very much. You can pretty much just forage or do the occasional bit of mild hunting, and you can survive off the land. See, now it's dark, and now monsters will eat me unless I put on the light. There we go. So nearly got bitten here. But once it gets winter, and once you kind of exhaust those resources, then you need to have a more steady food source, and then you need a source of warmth, and the monsters attack regularly, so the kind of the pressure goes up and up. Like the monster attacks become bigger, bigger monsters attack, like new challenges appear because like you might think winter stuff, but then summer arrives and everything dries out and you overheat. And so right, it really takes a long time to get to kind of a steady state. And that's really great. Like, it keeps on throwing these challenges at you. You have to like learn how to play the game. You can try off these different stratagems and ways of actually playing things. There's lots of items. The one slight downside is that once you've reached that steady state, well, there's not really anything left to do. Like, you can see like I played like 2 games there which are still like active, so I haven't died, which are at about day 70-ish, and that seems to be at about as long as I take to like, you know, kind of have a full base with all the stuff and all the things, and like from turn 70, if I survived that long, it's basically just a question of like, when will I run out of some rare or non-renewable resource or die from some stupid accident. So yeah, if the one thing which is a bit sad about Don't Starve is that once you are done with not starving, there's nothing left to do. I mean, not starving here means not starving, defending against the heat, defending against the cold, blah 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 blah. There's a lot to do, but like with Minecraft, for example, once you have gone past the survival stage, there's basically all of this exploration and all of this building and so on, which you can do. So Minecraft basically, in a sense, never gets completely old because you can always build some new thing, or maybe there's a pretty new piece of landscape around the corner. With Don't Starve, once you have your full base, well, I mean, you're sort of done. And the game doesn't have really a victory condition, which means that there's not even a thing where it will then pat you on the back and say, look, you won that Don't Starve. I mean, it kind of does, but like it's kind of a weird one which requires you to go through a bunch of worlds and stuff like that, a bunch of challenges. As they kind of try to bolt on a victory condition, but in the standard game mode there's none. So what I mean by all of this, it's really fun, but I basically don't play it anymore. I mean, this is after like, oh god, I don't know, 150 hours or something, which is really plenty of enjoyment. I'm not complaining, but then it sort of stops. Whereas Minecraft, I will still go back to on occasion, because hey, you know, sometimes I like to build some cool looking building. And so, like, the big question which I'm obviously setting up here is, can you have both? Can you have a game that has such kind of carefully balanced, tough survival, while also having the kind of permanent longevity that Minecraft enjoys? And I mean, in a certain sense, it's just, you sort of can't. It's a question of I thought I had an axe, yes. It's a question of kind of surplus time, right? Like civilization, as someone put it, like the buildings, machines, all of this stuff, tools, they're really stores of surplus time. Like, you invest a lot of time into them and then they're there, but once you've built them, they make things easier, they make things take less time. So they're kind of time banks. An axe is a time bank. You know, you've banked the time you needed to build the axe into it, and now you're much faster at felling trees. A building is a time bank. You don't need to work as hard at staying sheltered and so on. Minecraft is like, lets you bank your time very effectively. Like, there's really not that much you need to do before you've banked it all, really. Before you can basically spend like 95% of your time doing stuff rather than surviving. Don't Starve, on the other hand, like, you have to bank time, because if you don't, then you'll just die. Because basically right at the start, right in this situation, like there is enough time in the day to survive, but very quickly that's not true anymore. So if you want to continue surviving, you do need to bank some time, you do need to become efficient in your use of time, but it kind of bottoms out pretty quickly. You can't become super efficient. There's never a point where like most of your time is leisure. Because if that was the case, if you could get to a point where most of your time in Don't Starve was leisure time, was time to do some other stuff, to build, to explore, whatever, the whole tension of the game would fall apart, right? It wouldn't be Don't Starve anymore, it would just be wander around and occasionally like tend to your like high efficiency farm or something. So yeah, I don't think there's like a convenient generic solution to this. What you can do is you can go down further the route that Don't Starve already does, which is to basically add as the designers like specifically say, the game is kind of about these epicycles of challenges. Like you have to challenge to like day and night is like one cycle of challenges where like the game gets harder and easier and harder and easier and harder and easier, and you need to have tools for it. But then like hunger and sanity are bigger cycles. The seasons are bigger cycles yet, so you know, you might survive night, but you might not survive winter. And you could conceivably just add more bigger cycles yet. You could like you could have some kind of system wherein and then there's even bigger cycles like rare monsters that attack and stuff like that, and there's smaller monster attacks that come like once a week. So there's all of these cycles of difficulty, and you could just add more on top of those. So like maybe, you know, if you weren't like exactly one person, or if you just skip over the whole how babies are made thing, then like maybe every once in a while, like you kind of have a child, and your player character gets replaced by that child, and then you need to like deal with the fact that that child doesn't have any skills anymore. So like you built up all of like the skills or that knowledge or whatever. You've leveled up your character or something, and then you have a baby and your old character dies, and now you've got this new character who doesn't have these skills. And that could then be another cycle on top of that. Like you'd then I set myself on fire. No, okay, never mind. I got converted to Minecraft actually by a kind of early video of someone wanting to show off their house and actually accidentally setting it on fire. So, you know, I kind of watched and I was like, ooh, this is cool. Like, you know, what it implies about like the detail of world simulation, that like the fire can actually spread. You've built this house and then these interesting accidents happen. That kind of hooked me on the game. Of course, then they nerfed fire, so you can't actually do that anymore. But yeah. So you could add further cycles. Like you could have that. You could have like top of that, like okay, so like you need to build like libraries. You need to like build schools. You need to build like write books and make maps and everything to like preserve this knowledge across time to your next generations. And then like I don't know, every 1,000 years an ancient evil awakes and blah 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 blah, so you need to prepare for that as well. So I think with a game like Don't Starve, you can essentially add more cycles, and you can make the game longer to play. And you know, you could do that. I'm not saying like, oh, Clio so bad you like made a short game. They did really make quite a long game. But if you wanted to make one that was even longer, you could do that. But it still has to be balanced. I think fundamentally what you can't ever do is to do something where all of a sudden you have a lot of free time, because everything's like hunky-dory. You've like planted your crops and they're growing automatically or something. And in what you do in Minecraft, when you have that free time, is that you just build. But in Minecraft, it's very loose with its rules. You can like make things float in the middle of the sky. You know, you can carry like hundreds of tons of gold in blocks. I mean, this is still pretty nice. I mean, this guy's like carrying a lot of stuff right now. If you wanted to be really cruel, you'd like allow him to carry like 2 things at once, and that's it. He has 2 hands, right? So yeah, but then Minecraft basically starts working on completely different dimensions. It's no longer a kind of a strict resource management game about survival or something. Like really, the game you play when you play Minecraft is, well, mostly you're just doing creative stuff, and the and you can play in creative mode, of course, and many people do. And if you don't, like, the restrictions of creative mode, of non-creative mode rather, are kind of in there to cost things. Like, you can't just make a giant building out of gold, because you have to like mine that gold first. So a giant building out of gold then looks quite impressive, or you might like, you know, only make some specific things out of gold because you want them to look pretty or something. But still, like, really the game becomes about creativity, and like, I guess at a certain social level, the game becomes about kind of, you know, showing off to your friends almost. It's like, hey, look, I made a cool thing. I made this cool building. I would like social status for making this cool building. That's kind of what Minecraft ends up being about. It ends up being more like play, like in a playground or something. You make cool stuff to impress your friends, or something like that. And the game mechanics, like, you know, don't judge you on it. Like, the game mechanics don't really see the difference in between like an ugly, indifferent lump of building material and a very beautiful set of building material. And in fact, game rules are very lax in terms of what space you need and how defensible things are and so on. Like, storage boxes in Minecraft are so huge that, again, like, if you really just want a base that is functional, you can just make a pit in the ground and fill it with some boxes, and like make some kind of ditch or wall, or just lots of torches or something to keep the monsters away, and that will do. Like, base placement, like placement of entities in the base, like of buildings and so on, is already far more critical in Don't Starve. And as I said, like in the Dwarf Fortress episode, one of the things which I love about Dwarf Fortress is that, by and large, like, the physical arrangement of stuff really matters. You want to build a good defensive structure. The defensive structure sort of looks like a castle. In Don't Starve, well, you can build walls. You can't even build ceilings, for example. So your ability to build is really very strictly, and I imagine intentionally, curtailed. So I'm just laying a billion bunny traps here as a useful source of income. So the question is really, what can you do in the space beyond, you know, what's already kind of there, beyond like Dwarf Fortress, Minecraft and stuff? Can you make a game where, as I would kind of like, the needs of survival shape the physical arrangement of what you build in more realistic ways? Like, you build castles to defend yourself because a castle is actually a good defensive structure in game, because it's realistic enough in its like simulation of how like 3D space works, and hence walls are, you know, good to defend. Walls with overhangs are better, and so on. But then how do you balance this with this sort of survival gameplay, which is fun because it's hard? And of course the question is, does anyone else actually want this? I have this distinct feeling that well, I don't know, I mean, people really like Don't Starve. but I have this distinct feeling that most people who play, say, Minecraft, just like building stuff, even if it makes no sense. And whenever I play Minecraft, I always fret about the imaginary fret about materials and if this building will collapse or not and stuff like that, because I don't know, I think it looks cooler if it's kind of realistic, but I don't know if anyone else actually cares. So making a game which makes you build castles because that's the right thing to build might not really be very popular, because people would be, oh, but you have just to build these boring castles and it's boring, because why can't we build giant squirrel shaped statues made out of gold or something? It would be way cooler. I don't know. But yeah, as you can see from my blathering, this is definitely kind of a corner of game design which I'm pretty interested in, and which I feel like has things to offer still. Kind of combinations of survival and building, kind of building up your tools for survival and so on, which haven't been, as thoroughly explored as they could be. This kind of idea that you can really build this whole kind of little civilization and kind of feel pride in all the your road network and in your in all of your buildings and so on. But the two things which are hard are balance. How do you make sure that people can constantly improve things while also not making the game too easy after a whole bunch of improvement, which is really difficult. How do you get that curve right? How do you crank up the difficulty just so that players get enough free time to improve their base, to store time, while not giving them too much slack so they feel like, oh, this is not actually really easy. And the other question is just okay, if you have building, building can get quite complex. All of these interactions can get quite complex. Minecraft is a collection of hacks to deal with the fact that we want to kind of simulate real life, but we want to simulate it at a granularity of 1 block equals 1 cubic meter. As water works weirdly, energy works weirdly, animals are weird, everything's weird. Yeah. Oh, spiders. But yeah, I've occasionally played around with kind of essentially doing a more of a kind of an ecological simulation where you kind of run around it and kind of build structures. Something halfway in between Don't Starve, Dwarf Fortress and Minecraft, I guess. But I don't know if that's a current game design, if that's just me, listing games which I enjoy and insisting that we should just glue them together. So yeah, these are kind of my things on Don't Starve. Apart now from the kind of high level stuff which I've been going on about, this is a really fun game. I definitely recommend it because okay, sure, whatever, if you play it for 70 days and you survive, then it loses its thread a bit. But 70 days is a lot of playtime, and you will take a very long time to get there. You can easily get dozens, if not hundreds of hours of a great deal of enjoyment out of this, just figuring out how to play it, and figuring out how to play it in a good way. You very rarely feel oh, this is really frustrating, the game was unfair to me, I didn't know how the controls worked, I didn't know about this aspect of the game. Largely everything is about making stuff, making tools, interacting with things. There's various animals and resources and so on. Everything is kind of this is obviously a bad thing. This hound with a giant bite your face, like they're bad, you need to run away from them. So it's not a hard game in the sense that, say, Dwarf Fortress is hard where the user interface is incomprehensible. It's kind of hard because there's just a lot to learn. You'll survive night and then you will die in winter, you'll survive winter and you'll die in summer, you know. But the next time you'll know better. So yeah, all in all, I have to say, you know, as a game developer type person, I like this one. I feel like if the game provokes envy in you, that's probably a good sign. Like you sort of feel like, I should have made this game. I should have made this game. Then they probably did something right. I definitely feel a bit like, I should have made this game. Instead, I'll just eat off those bunnies. Okay, yeah. Yeah, there's also Don't Starve Together, which is basically the same but in multiplayer, which is still in beta. I've played it a bit, it's quite fun. So it gives you a bit more of a kind of Minecraft multiplayer thing, but again, like you're basically all constantly running around trying to not die. It's like you can do PvP. I have no idea why you'd possibly want to do PvP, because you're constantly near death even without that. Rabbit. Okay, I think that's all for now. I'm going to go away and continue working on airships. I'm animating spiders and putting things into data files for the eventual arrival of the hideous monster-filled update. Yeah. Thank you for watching, thank you for listening. Do subscribe to the channel. I turn up every Monday and rant about game design, and on Tuesdays and Thursdays I stream some development. You can see the schedule in the bottom right on my Twitch channel, and I will also, as always, be syndicating this to YouTube for later watching. And that's all. Thank you and goodbye.